Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to this week's weekly recap, where it's a relatively light week with only one transfer portal commit, and that's for the women's basketball team, and one major series for the Batcats, and one game that we're going to be talking about for a series that's ongoing. So let's just go ahead and dive straight into this. And the new transfer portal commit for the women's basketball team is Janessa Cotton, a former Duke forward. I believe she was a true or redshirt freshman this year. I want to say she was a redshirt freshman. But this, to me, she's a 6'2" forward. This, again, says to me we are going to be our front court is going to be very, very developmental, because we got the piece from formerly committed to Kentucky.
She came from Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. She was originally committed to Kentucky, went to Virginia Tech. Another developmental piece. So to me, this sort of signals what next year is going to be. I'm assuming at this point Kennedy Taylor is going to get a waiver. Don't quote me on that. It just has the vibes that she probably will get the waiver. So that's probably our main post player. But everything else past that is up in the air for who's going to fill in after her. I think next year for the women's team, we keep saying it's going to be very similar to how this year is for the Batcats, where it's a lot of people that are going to be developing together. And the Batcats are, not to spoil what's going ahead, but they're in a pretty decent position to make the postseason. Next year's women's basketball team is not going to be as good as this year's team. It's just not going to be. However, they're still going to have that young talent to where they reasonably could go out and beat anybody. The inverse of that is they could go out and lose to anybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And I think developmental is probably the best way to describe them as well. That I think it pops up in their portal ads as well. They've been getting tons of developmental pieces, a lot of lottery tickets, you might say. Janessa Cotton, I think that she's that. She was very, very limited action this year for Duke. Ramiah White at Virginia Tech, same deal. Like K-State, most of our portal additions have been lottery tickets on either hoping we can really develop somebody or hoping someone can get back to form, like with Tess Heel. But Janessa Cotton, yeah, she's a former top 100 recruit. That's another thing we've been stockpiling a lot of is players who were or currently are very highly rated recruits. So we're trying to get a lot of blue chip prospects on this roster. I think we're basically saying let's just infuse a ton of talent into this roster, and some of it's going to work out, some of it's not going to, and that'll work itself out once we start playing basketball games, and also work with them throughout the off season. So Janessa Cotton really fits the blueprint it seems that we've had this whole off season. So I'm excited to see if she can bring anything to the table next year, because I imagine she may have the chance for a bigger role here than she would have had at Duke. Maybe not. I'm not sure what their situation was with her, but yeah, this fits the mold, and we definitely needed more post presence. So this is a solid ad.
Yeah, and Janessa Cotton only played in 8 games for Duke this last year, averaged a point a game, about a rebound a game, and a turnover a game, and was a 28.6 on the year. So, I mean, you can't really take anything from those numbers. She got in probably early in the season because she'd already redshirted and just sort of was there to eat minutes. And this is, I think there is room to be critical of the process of getting the developmental players, especially if, and I don't know this for sure, especially if players like Amani Lester or Eliza Maupin were I don't want to say pushed out, but said like, listen, here's the situation. Feel free to look for somewhere else. I think there is room to be critical of that process when you're getting a bunch of lottery tickets. However, even as one of the biggest Amani Lester truthers, she kind of was who she was. And Eliza Maupin was freakishly athletic, but that was kind of her game. I think that I think it comes down to pedigree, where a lot of the lottery tickets that we are getting are much less of a lottery ticket in terms of there's a better chance of it hitting than it was for Amani or Eliza to really take that big next step up. And I think, granted, I don't think that there's a lot of people who are truly critical of the process. I've just seen it one or two times, and I think it's worth pointing out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But the big difference that I would say for the people that are a little bit upset about maybe that process is the level of experience, which I think plays in K-State's favor here because, Eliza Maupin was a junior. This is her third season with K-State, and she's mostly been about the same level of player who, depending on matchup, was prone to either have very quiet nights or occasionally have a great game. But her points per game hasn't really gone up or down that much since she got here. Her minutes haven't really gone higher. She never really broke into the first player off the bench role that I think we were kind of hoping for. And Amani's kind of the same. She didn't really come together, I think, the way that we were hoping. Both of those players were here for multiple seasons, and it just they didn't grow the way I think that we were hoping they would, like a Serena Sundell or Jalen Glenn, who we were able to develop over the course of multiple years. But these players, they've got really great backgrounds where they were already evaluated as being very talented and for whatever reason didn't want to remain at their old spot. And we're saying we'll take a shot at developing these players. And if we don't, then these aren't going to be our starters. Probably these are players that we're going to bring off the bench probably unless they really shock us because we're going to be relying on your Tess Heel or this year it's going to be a lot of Jordan Spicer, Terrence Sides, and Nia Foy, I think. So, but there's still I think in the portal world, I think particularly when you have as good an incoming recruiting class from the high school ranks as K-State has, these are the type of players that I think you should be taking, particularly if Kennedy Taylor is getting the waiver that I also agree. I assume she's getting. I don't know that for a fact, but we're operating as if she were getting that waiver. So I'll just make an assumption there.
Yeah. So that's it. I'm interested to see how this women's roster is finalized. I think it's pretty close to what it's going to be. Maybe one more ad, just depending on who it is. I'm also interested to see how the men's roster is assembled for completely different reasons. But that's not a topic for today. That's a topic for another day. But now we can go ahead and talk about the K-State versus West Virginia series, which we said before the series even started could be the series that defines the season for K-State. It was either going to be this series up against number 12 West Virginia, or if it didn't go well, the terrible series up against Oklahoma State that still doesn't really have a great explanation for it. But K-State ends up taking this series 2-3, including an all-time classic game for the first one where K-State won 8-7, a bit of a blowout the second game 3-10, and then another exciting victory on the senior night on that last game, 14-9. And I feel like it's only fitting that we start with the first game, but also what happens to be the most exciting game, which was an 8-7 Wildcat victory in Toynton Family Stadium. And I believe, was this the game that you were at?
This was not. I was at the Sunday game, which was also a comeback. But no, I was not at this one. I was planning to go to it, but I had something come up. I wasn't able to. But I was listening to the radio broadcast while driving. on this one.
Yeah, so the story of this game is going into the bottom of the ninth inning, K-State was down 7-2, and they end up rallying back with and getting an 8-7 victory. Funnily enough, started and ended by the same player, and that's Keegan O'Connor, who hit a home run to make the game 7-3, and then capped off the inning and the game with a single to right field, which ended up bringing home the game-winning run for K-State. KOC has played himself into Conference Player of the Year contention, which is so strange, given that it doesn't seem like he's been the focus up until these last few weeks. Beginning of the season, it was Max Martin. Middle of the season, it was Avasco, Madliak, D. Kennedy. Now, Keegan O'Connor has been the same player. I don't want to get that, Nick. I don't want to get that twisted. KOC has been the same player throughout the entire season. He's been this consistently good. And that's why he, along with Shintaro Inoue, who's really come along these last few weeks, have sort of elevated the rest of the roster. Like, say you have a Max Martin not having a good day. That's okay. KOC is.
Yeah. I think it's easy to forget that at the beginning of the season, Keegan O'Connor was not in the starting lineup to begin the year. He was an off-the-bench player that Pete Hughes a few times said, he's so good behind the plate, we have to find ways to get him on the field. And they eventually found ways to do that. They shuffled the rotation. They put him in left field, and he's got a really strong arm, so he's a solid enough defender there. But no, his bat has been just unbelievable down the stretch for K-State. If he had just been a little bit better, I think early in the season, been at this level or close to it throughout the whole year, I think he'd be the Conference Player of the Year. I don't think he's going to quite get it. But if you were giving it out for just like the last month and a half, it would be him in a landslide, I think, because he's just been absolutely phenomenal, particularly these last couple of weeks. It's a shame this is going to be his only year here. I wish that we could find another magic eligibility year for him. I know that Scott Wildcat's not going to be happy to hear me say that, play with eligibility games, but man, I really like watching him play baseball. He's a lot of fun. And to think that our Keegan O'Connor obsession started with, I think it was the Frisco Classic. He had like a 490-foot home run or something like that.
Yep, 490-foot dong.
Yeah, so pause. Anyway, and that's what put him on our radar. And since then, he's been incredible. Max Martin, who I remember about a month and a half ago, we were talking about how he was at 12 home runs and the K-State single season record was 16. And we were like, okay, well, he's at 12 like halfway through the year. So he's going to break the record easy. But Keegan O'Connor just have been on an absolute tear and has passed Max Martin and has now tied the K-State single season home run record for an individual, that is, with 16. So next home run that Keegan sends over the fence, he will have his name etched in K-State baseball history. And Max Martin, he's still managed to put together a couple more home runs since then, despite his pretty serious slump. But also this whole team has just been incredible when it comes to hitting long balls.
Yeah, I mean, the team has the team record, which I believe was 96. They broke that. Do you remember how big a deal it was when we were at the game where Dylan Phillips broke the single game record? You remember that? Yeah,
because he had the career record, I think, was what he said. The career record for individual home runs, which I can't remember exactly what the number was. It was like the low 40s, I think. But that was with a senior season where he kind of took a bit of a step back as well from his prior year, because I think he was tied for the single season lead in home runs. So KOC is up there with them right now. But yeah, Keegan has still, at minimum, from the time of recording, 3 more opportunities, because we'll have the rest of the Cincinnati series and at least one game in the Big 12 tournament, I imagine, they will probably make regionals for the NCAA regionals, but you never know, I guess. But they're not on the last four in right now.
What a crazy week. We'll talk about that afterwards. But Connor, do you want to talk about the offense or the pitching for this game?
Well, you've given me the choice, and I think batting is the obvious pick here because you get to talk about the comeback. But I still think when you get to talk about pitching, there's some incredible performances that you can talk about on your own as well.
Yeah.
But K-State hitting wise out-hit West Virginia in this game 13-11. Of course, they win 8-7. 6 of those runs coming in the bottom of the 9th inning, and just an improbable comeback where West Virginia extended it to 7-2 in the top of the 9th. Of course, Keegan leads off with that home run, and throughout that whole rally, K-State only registered 1 out and batted around. But getting to the lineup, Shintaro Inoue, 1 hit on 3 ABs, but did draw 2 walks. Nick English, he was actually DHing in this game. He went 1 for 3 and drew a walk. I think he got hurt, though, in this game, like on the base paths or something like that. So he was pinch hit for Ty Smolinski, who came in the bottom of the 9th. And as a true freshman, he's played sparingly, but he had a absolutely massive ground out. He ground out to third, and it was just the right speed where there wasn't a play at home because the bases were loaded. He was thrown out, but that tied the game. And so Ty Smolinski made it so K-State was at absolute minimum not going to lose in 9 innings. So a big shout out to Ty Smolinski there for the sacrifice. Max Martin had a bit of a rough day, 0 for 4. Keegan O'Connor, of course, 2 for 5, 2 RBIs and the walk-off there. But yeah, he was 0 for 3 going into the bottom of the 9th inning, and he came out batting 400 on the day, so I'm sure he's pretty happy about that. Seth Dardar, 1 for 3. D. Kennedy had a great game, 3 for 4. AJ Vasco, he went 2 for 3 with an RBI as well. Bear Madliak, 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. So safe to say that he's mostly broken out of that slump. And then Sam Flores, he pinch hit David Bishop. He had an RBI single, and then Rowan Putz came in and scored a run for him on the base paths because Sam Flores is not particularly fleet of foot. But pretty much everybody did something on the day when it comes to the offense. And both pinch runners were brought home as well, Caden Carl and Rowan Putz. So, yeah, but not a whole lot to really add there. Just kind of letting the stats speak for themselves. K-State put together 3 doubles as well. D. Kennedy tripled. And then, of course, a pair of home runs. Keegan O'Connor's solo shot and Bear Madliak had one too.
Yeah, amazing offensive performance, especially putting together a 5-run comeback to win the game in the 9th inning when, honestly, the game looked over. You don't that doesn't happen. 5-run comebacks to win the game don't just happen.
Yeah, this was one where I just about turned the broadcast off because I was like, I don't really want to watch this anymore. I don't want to listen to it anymore, I guess, in this case. But I am glad I kept listening.
Yeah. And we also have to give the flowers to the pitching staff. I know you see they gave up a total of 7 runs, and 6 of them were earned. But still, they were pretty solid performances against the number 12 team in the country. Jacob Frost going 6 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 4 earned runs, no walks to 9 strikeouts, and only 88 pitches. That is you take that outing up against a top 15 team in the country, especially not giving up any walks. So the most encouraging thing to me when I see it as from an outsider's perspective, I'm not a coach. I don't know if this is Rudy Darrow's approach. I want to see the offense beat the pitcher much more than I want to see the pitcher beat themselves. Because if you're giving up a bunch of walks and free bases, their margin of error gets so much wider. But if you're making them beat you, it's like, yeah, you got me. You beat me on a few pitches, and that's how you scored your runs. As a pitcher, you can make yourself okay with that. But at least that, granted, this is when I was a pitcher. I would rather give up a home run than walk somebody. Yes, one is just a base. The other is an entire run. I don't care. They beat me on that one pitch where they hit the home run. They didn't beat me with 4 when I gave them a walk, and I didn't beat myself that way. And again, that was my philosophy when I pitched. God, I'm missing organized sports as a 24-year-old fat guy. And then Ty Rule goes 2 1/3 innings, 2 hits, 3 runs given up, 2 of them earned, 2 walks, a strikeout, and a wild pitch, and an intentional walk. Ty Rule continues to be one of the most enigmatic pitchers perhaps in K-State history, because it's like rolling a D20, but anytime that you get a number below 16, it's bad Ty Rule. But whenever you get anything above that, you suddenly have the greatest pitcher in history, and it goes by pitch to pitch. So you take that pitching performance, especially only having to use 2 and keeping yourself in the game with that 5-run comeback. So first game obviously goes really well for K-State. Second game doesn't. It's a bit of a blowout in favor of West Virginia. It wins 10-3. Game was over by pretty much I shouldn't say that. It wasn't over by the 4th inning because the margin was still 5 after that 4th inning, and we've seen it happen in a half an inning. But it sort of had the feeling there was no scoring after the 6th, and it was a grand slam that gave West Virginia the commanding 8-3 lead in the 4th inning. So this is one of those games where you shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, we got beat by a top 15 team. Only 4 hits on the day, 2 from KOC, 1 from Max Martin, and then 1 from David Bishop. No one else registered a hit on the day, so you're not going to beat a team that way. And you're also probably not going to beat a team when you have to use as many pitchers as K-State did.
Yeah. One other notable thing on the batting, K-State rounded to 5 double plays in this game. So that's a great way to lose momentum as well if you're K-State. So don't do that. Don't do that again. But yeah, 5 pitchers in this game for the Cats. Michael Quevedo got the start. 3 2/3 for him. So didn't get super far in the game. 3 hits, 4 runs, 3 of them earned. 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, a wild pitch, and a hit batter. So stat line's a bit busier than you would like. But Tanner Duke came in. Since there's no more midweek games, Duke was able to be used as a relief pitcher in this one since he's normally our midweek starter. But he did not have a great performance whatsoever.
What Connor's about to read, I'm sorry to interrupt. What Connor is about to read happened in 6 pitches. Continue.
Yeah, so 2 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 hit batter, only faced 3, but some of the grand slam runs were attributed to him. Just 6 pitches for Tanner Duke. The breaking ball was not working for him, and he's a pitcher that if his curveball's on, he can strike out just about anybody, but if it's off, then he's kind of done for. Very rough outing for Tanner Duke. Adam Arthur was the one that gave up the grand slam, but he didn't load the bases, so he only gets 1 earned run out of that. So 2/3 of an inning for Adam Arthur, 2 hits, an earned run, 2 walks. So not the best day for him. Taz Butler, who we haven't been seeing as much as I thought we would of him, but he comes in for some long relief in this game. 3 2/3, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk to 3 strikeouts. So he gave K-State 48 pitches. And the game was pretty well out of hand by the 9th inning. So Dante Lewis came in to get some work and had his best outing in quite a while. He went 1 inning, then walked 1 and had 2 strikeouts. Dante is a guy who has like his stuff's incredible. Like the movement he's able to get on his breaking balls and his velocity on his fastball. The stuff is there. The command just isn't right now, but this was a day where he was on. I honestly think for Dante, maybe just having an outing where there was just zero pressure at all was probably good for him because he, while he has had some high pressure relief outings this year and done well, this game, particularly at the stretch he's had recently, I think was probably best for him to get a bit more of a low pressure outing for him.
You remember when Dante Lewis was our 2 starter for like the first week of the season?
Yeah, he started that North Carolina game, and I don't know if he started down in Dallas, but he had a long outing against Michigan. Yeah, that was the one where he went 4 innings, had 3 strikeouts. So early in the season, he had some incredible outings. In that North Carolina game, he gave up 4 runs. But
he got hoed so bad. He got hoed so bad.
Recently, it's really been the Nebraska midweek that we won, then at then the Wichita State home game, and then at Nebraska that have really, I think, kind of thrown him off. But he had a point there in early to mid-March where he had a 1.69 ERA. And had given up like 2 earned runs all year. So he was kind of looking like that guy to begin the year. But again, just as a freshman, once the film is out on you and they're like, hey, just take pitches. He doesn't have command yet. Then that starts to make things tough.
Yeah. So that's one of those games where you'd love a sweep every series, but the goal was always 2 out of 3. And K-State got that goal by winning the last game 14-9. You could consider it a comeback. I would say that this was more of a back and forth game, but biggest thing, 17 hits for K-State, and perhaps the biggest, I don't think we have ever said it on the episode, but it has been one of our favorite phrases independent of saying it, and that is the Dardar Dink. Seth Dardar with the grand slam to give extra insurance for K-State. They had the lead at the time of the grand slam, but it was just that extra 4 runs of insurance that technically K-State didn't need. But boy, oh boy, if it didn't make me much more comfortable having it, given what happened in the 9th inning. But Connor, you get the offense again this time, and I'm going to go get a drink of water while you recount the 17 hits that happened here.
Yeah. I think everybody that came to the plate in this game got a hit. Yeah, I'm looking through it. Everybody did. So Shintaro Inoue, 2 for 4 in this one, a pair of RBI and a walk. And he had an opposite field home run in the bottom of the 3rd to open the scoring for K-State in this one. Then D. Kennedy, he went 1 for 4, scored a pair of runs. He drew a walk, and he had an RBI as well. That hit came in the 8th inning to make K-State's lead 10-8. So he was part of that huge rally for Kansas State. Then Seth Dardar was kind of the man of the hour in this one. 3 for 5, 2 runs scored, 5 RBI. Of course, he had the grand slam in the bottom of the 8th, which also was the home run that set the record for most home runs in a season for the whole team, which I gave K-State 90 home runs on the year, which is an incredible number. Broke the number, I think, from the 2021 squad. I think that was the year we had like Kokoska and Cam Thompson. That was Dylan Phillips' big season. That was a team that hit a ton of bombs, particularly down in Arlington. They just could not stop hitting home runs that year. But
was Kojo on that team? Was it Kojo or Dom Johnson that was on that team, or both?
Cole Johnson was. I don't think Dom Johnson was. I think he was the next year.
I think he was 22. I think you're right.
Yeah, but Cole Johnson was on that team, I think. But Yeah, Dardar. It was also a bit of an opposite field home run, but mostly to center. Just an incredible moment there at the ballpark because spirits were pretty down when it was 8-7 after West Virginia's big home run in the seventh, and then K State responded after a 3-3 down in the seventh. But Keegan O'Connor had a bit of a quiet day, 1 for 5 with 1 RBI on the day. His RBI came in the fifth. And Sam Flores went 1 for 3. Caden Carl pinch ran for him and scored a run. Ty Smolinski pinch hit for Caden Carl. He went 1 for 1, so he was able to reach again. And then Max Martin 2 for 4, 2 runs scored with an RBI, and he got a double as well in this game. AJ Vasco 3 for 4, 2 runs and an RBI. He was the one that tied the game in the 8th inning. He singled going opposite, which is something that he's been doing a bit more of recently, is going the other way. I will say his swing never looks like it's going to go opposite, but it just kind of deflects that way sometimes, and it's a really great weapon, intentional or not, almost certainly unintentional, but for a pull hitter like AJ Vasco, having that available as an option is going to do wonders for him. But Rowan Putz was a defensive sub for him. Bear Madliak 2 for 4 with a pair of RBIs and a run in this game. David Bishop 1 for 3 with a run and an RBI. So Casey as a team batted 17 for 37 in this game, and that's with a pair of walks as well. So K-State was seeing West Virginia well in this game, you might say. And this game definitely did some damage to West Virginia's whip numbers, I would say.
Also did some numbers on their hosting chances. I think they're still listed as one of the last host teams. I think them and TCU are kind of both vying for that last hosting spot, which I'm really happy we beat TCU.
Yeah, that's another one that's doing wonders for us right now, because at the time TCU hadn't really found their stride, but they have really picked it up here in pretty recently in conference play. The last couple months, like they're 4th in the conference right now, so they are they're doing really well. But yeah, I'm glad that we got them early. I'll put it like that. And yeah, West Virginia just lost at home to KU tonight. So they're really kind of sliding right now.
Yeah. And I've noticed these past few years that late in the season is kind of the best time to face West Virginia. But it's sort of like the anti-TCU, where you want to get TCU early, but you really don't want to get them late. West Virginia is the opposite. But now we can talk about the pitching. Lincoln Sheffield goes 4 2/3, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 strikeouts on 70 pitches. Fine outing. He doesn't get enough for the decision. But James Guyette, who's been really up and down, I think that's just because of that's just how his stuff is. Sometimes he's still getting used to a new arm slot, and sometimes whenever you are used to having a pitch that batters are used to having relatively straight pitches. Guyette's weirdly a pitcher that I think is going to do, if he manages to make a major league roster, I think he's going to do exponentially better, just because the sweet spot on wood bats are much smaller. But James Guyette goes 2 2/3, 4 earned runs, 5 total runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Not his best outing. And then J.J. Slack gave us a little taste of the Tyson Neighbors special in the last inning, which is terrifying still. 1 2/3 innings, 2 hits, only 1 earned run, 3 strikeouts, 2 hit by pitches. I was sweating that that last inning because I think it was either bases loaded or it was 2 runners in scoring position, so second and third. I wasn't having a good time. And then J.J. Slack, after a mound visit, says, "Wait a minute, I'm him," and then gets 3 strikeouts. So,
yeah, he had a very eventful. Top of the ninth. Yeah, because as it goes here, hit the first batter on an 0-1. Single was given up. Mound visit from Madliak. Then a double that scores a guy. So they had runners on second and third. And then 3 straight strikeouts, and not a single ball was thrown in those strikeouts. It was
an immaculate inning. The last part.
There was one foul ball in the second strikeout, but almost. It was looking, swinging, swinging, looking, foul, swinging, looking, foul, swinging. And so in 10 pitches, he extinguished he realized the error of his ways after a mound visit and just started pumping the zone with heat and mixed in some really great off-speed stuff. Slack is just kind of that type of pitcher, and he always has been. He, in a way, is like the extreme version of Tyrell, which is kind of weird to say, but he's just so wildly inconsistent. But when he's on, he is genuinely almost unhittable. When he's off, he might lose you the game in an inning. But it seems like kind of like Tyson, that sometimes he thrives in these like high pressure do or die situations. And perhaps maybe he manufactures them himself occasionally when he doesn't need to. Also like Tyson.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way of putting it. But picking up this series for K-State was huge, as it got them mid-30s in RPI, put them on the right side of the bubble. I believe at the beginning of the game today up against Cincinnati, they were listed as a 3 seed. The most recent projection has them playing against in Eugene with a region that is Oregon, Duke, K-State, and Missouri State. That's weirdly a favorable region for K-State if they stay there. They almost certainly won't. But it's also worth noting that Cincinnati is on the last 4 in this bracketology that they have. And let me make sure that I'm seeing this correctly. Yes, Fort Worth, Texas is listed as a host site. And it looks like on the outside looking in is West Virginia. So their collapse has really hurt them.
Yeah, because they were really in the driver's seat to host and look at a super regional. They're kind of having a similar collapse that we did, but just way later, which makes it even worse because it was right there for them. But they something we didn't mention when talking about this series is that the game before West Virginia played us for West Virginia was backyard brawl, and they lost that game in the bottom of the 9th on a walk-off as well. And it was another big comeback, I think, for Pitt. So coming off of that, then they had the same thing happen to them in Manhattan. They dropped that series, and they just dropped a game to KU, which KU's risen all the way to second, and the tie for second in the conference with Arizona State, after Arizona State lost. But that's where things stand right now. K-State tied for 5th with Arizona. The top 4, it's looking like they're probably set because TCU's in 4th, and they're just battering Utah on the road right now. Arizona State, I guess, is maybe the best candidate to drop out because West Virginia and KU are playing each other. But if K-State wins a couple of games, they could maybe work their way into the top 4, which would be great for getting a bye in the Big 12 tournament, or the double bye, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they'll have to win these last 2 games of the Cincinnati series because they played the first one today, ended up dropping the game 7-4. All of K-State's runs came in the 4th inning or before, so really just sort of silenced the bats after that, though K-State was threatening a few times at the back half of that game. And this one is, you see 9 hits with only 4 total runs, no home runs, and only 3 extra base hits for K-State. Shintaro Inoue goes 1 for 3 with an RBI. Seth Dardar 1 for 5 with a run. KOC goes 1 for 5 but gets 2 RBI. AJ Vasco 2 for 4. Max Martin 1 for 3 with a walk. Sam Flores 1 for 2 with a walk. Bear Madliak 1 for 3 with a run. And then David Bishop wraps up the hits with 1 for 4 and an RBI. And this was a game that you could have won, and it looked really good early because we sort of jumped on them pretty early. First and second inning, we end up putting up a total of 3 runs. So you put yourself in the driver's seat, and then the bats just kind of go cold after that. And Cincinnati is another team that's fighting for their tournament lives. They are on the right side of the bubble, but still on the bubble. So this is an equally important game for both K-State and Cincinnati, because if K-State gets swept, they need to make noise in the Big 12 tournament to feel even remotely good about making the NCAA tournament. And if Cincinnati wins the series, they probably keep themselves on the right side of the bubble. So this might be a situation where winner of the series swaps spots with the other.
Yeah. So luckily, since K-State won the series against West Virginia, I think the Cincinnati series is probably just get at least one game out of this weekend. Would have been nice to get this first one tonight since we had the lead, but I'm just kind of a bit of a rough start from Jacob Frost after kind of doing some damage control the first couple of innings. He just kind of lost it, unfortunately. And Ty Rule wasn't able to keep runs off the board. But yeah, this is a series K-State needs to take one. I mean, you'd love to take 2, but I think if we take 1, you can live with that. Because, I mean, conference championships, not a possibility. Double by the Big 12 tournament, really unlikely. You got to have some help for that to happen. So at this point, you're playing for security in the postseason.
And West Virginia just outright won the regular season title.
All right. So West Virginia, despite their loss to KU, they've got the regular season titles. So they can, I guess, lick their wounds with that information. Despite the collapse they've had these last couple of weeks. They still did enough to win the Big 12, so good for them, particularly with the first-year head coach. It's a pretty big deal. I get that he's been on staff there for a while, but that's still not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, but anyway, you have the pitching, which you look at it and it doesn't look too bad. It's just the unearned runs that really hurt.
Yeah, Jacob Frost, he only made it through 2 2/3 in this one. Only 2 hits were given up, but he just had really poor command outside of the first inning in this one. 4 runs, 3 earned, 4 walks, a wild pitch, and 2 hit batters. And that's just with the pair of strikeouts. So he only made it 50 pitches. That's just not going to do it for the defense. Ty Rule came in. He pitched 4 innings and did okay. Did pretty good, actually, keeping runs off the board for the most part. But 3 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 1 intentional walk. So 62 pitches for him. Adam Arthur, he gave up 1 hit in a third of an inning. Then James Guyette came in. He gave up a run in the 8th or 9th. In the 8th, it would have had to have been, I suppose. But 2 hits, 1 earned run, and 2 strikeouts for Guyette. And that was a situation where K-State actually did get into some potential position to maybe take the lead late in this game. K-State loaded the bases in the 8th inning with no outs as well. Or 1 out, excuse me, with an AJ Vasco single, a Max Martin single, and then a hit by pitch for Bear Madliak. But then a David Bishop infield fly and a Shintaro Inoue fly out to center on a 2-0 count. That just sunk K-State, and then you give up another run in the bottom of the inning, and that just kind of ended things. But yeah, it's pretty frustrating not to capitalize there. But David Bishop, I guess, is probably not the guy you want at the plate in that situation. I would have liked to have seen a pinch hitter, but maybe there was a matchup they liked. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But as it stands today, after that game, K-State sits at 37 in RPI. Cincinnati sits at 35. So I would imagine the most that happens is K-State, like if they get swept, they drop to 40. But if they pick up a game, they stay exactly where they are with 37, stay on the right side of the bubble. That is pretty much it, though I do want to talk to you after this episode to look at this projection field of 64, because there are a few regions that, dear God, I would hate to be the 3 or 4 seed. There's one region that, to give you a preview of how ridiculous one of these regions is, it's the number 3 overall region. So that's Auburn, right? In their region is Auburn, obviously, Northeastern, Virginia, and Holy Cross. I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah, Virginia is going to be one of those scary teams because they were immensely talented coming into the year. I mean, they beat us in the Supers last year, but they had a really, really rough beginning of the year. But they've just completely turned their season around as of late. They just had a big series win last weekend. I can't remember against who, but it was a ranked opponent. So that is not a 3 seed that I would want to see because that's a team that was preseason number 2 in the country. So, which again, preseason doesn't count for everything, but they were in Omaha last year. So that's a talented squad right there.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about this afterwards because, good Lord, there are a few regions here that nightmare scenario. But do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
Women's Golf Nationals starts day of release, and outdoor track and field championships are going on right now. K-State's Gary Moore took first place in the hammer throw today.
Natty time.
You know, if we break the drought with women's golf, I'll take it. Like if like Iowa State can parade their like 1970s like cross country and stuff like that, then we're gonna take women's golf and print 1 million shirts.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, and that's all we have to say. I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggieVilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I'm at ACEdwards00.
I'm at Connor Baltasor, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, link found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.